Have you been thinking about buying an investment property in Central Oregon, especially Bend, Oregon? And you're wondering, what is that sweet spot, that just right price, the right rental amount? How can I make it all work? Maybe even cash flow the property? Stay tuned, that is what we're talking about today. Hi, my name's Nora Spangler, and I'm a realtor here in Central Oregon with Stellar Realty Northwest. Today I'll be giving you my 5 top tips for buying an investment property here in Central Oregon, especially Bend. Bend in Central Oregon has a pretty robust rental market. Almost every day I see another real estate agent saying they have a client or a friend, a family member, somebody is looking for a rental. Before we get started on the 5 tips, I just want to mention one thing. A lot of people that ask me about investment properties, they don't quite understand the whole concept of cash flow, and they think that they can just have their mortgage payment and they're going to get some huge rental amount and it's going to just cover all the expenses of owning the property. That is not always true, so be very careful. If you are in need to cash flow the property, meaning you're going to pay all the expenses plus have some extra as basically profit each month, that can be challenging in Bend because yes, our rental prices are fairly high compared to other areas and the nation as a whole, but our real estate prices are also high. So you're paying a premium for that home, and especially if you're going to have a mortgage and want to cash flow the property, just be careful with that. It's probably going to be pretty challenging, but I'm going to give you some tips for getting as close to a cash flow situation as you possibly can. Tip number 1 is related to property taxes. So you definitely want to know how much you're going to be paying in property taxes because you have to tack that on to your mortgage payment, your homeowner's insurance, bundle that all together, plus some other expenses, which we're going to talk about. But in Oregon, when you purchase a property, the property taxes don't reset at that higher price or value that you just paid for that house. Now, I think in California, that's how they work. I've had a lot of people move here from California, and they're shocked that our property taxes are so different. So here's how it works. The property taxes started out, let's say it's an existing home that's 20 years old. And in back when the home was built, the property taxes were, say, $1,000. In Oregon, property taxes are only allowed to increase 3% per year. So over 20 years, the property taxes on that home have been held down essentially over time by this rule of 3% increase. If you compare an older home to a new construction home, which I get asked about a lot, wouldn't it be better to buy a new construction home? Well, it might be, but property taxes on a new construction home are going to be established and assessed at today's higher rate. So you don't get the benefit of property taxes that have been held down, for 20 years on an older home. So just keep that in mind. Property taxes on a new construction, let's say $600,000 home, are probably going to be about $5,000 to $6,000. The property tax rate in the city of Bend is 0.9%, so just under 1%. So if you round up, you could say the property taxes on a $600,000 home might be around $6,000. They won't quite be that high, but just as a round number. Now, if you compare a similar home that's 20 years old, those property taxes might only be, $3,500, maybe $4,000. So you're probably going to save, $1,500 to $2,000 a year on your property taxes by buying an older home. Now, of course, an older home comes with a myriad of other issues that might concern you. So it's up to you, and you have to balance all these numbers out and see what works best for you. Tip number 2, when you're trying to figure out what kind of a house, and what particular home that you might want to purchase, think about the type of renter that you would like to attract. Now, I'm not talking about discrimination. That is illegal, and we don't want that happening. But you can attract a certain type of buyer to a certain type of home that they would most desire. So let's talk about a couple of things. Families with young children, for instance, the type of home they might prefer, they might want all the bedrooms to be on the same level, either a single level or all the bedrooms being upstairs together, because with young kids, mom and dad might want to be near the children. Now, if you're talking a family with older children or possibly a retired couple, they might want the main bedroom to be on the main level, the lower level if it's a two-story. And with the older kids having bedrooms upstairs, farther away from the parents. So there's different situations, and by choosing the type of home, you are naturally going to attract a different type of renter. If you want to attract renters that have pets and you're going to allow pets, then you better have some backyard space for the pet. And also for families with young kids, they might want some backyard space. They might also prefer a home in an HOA situation where they have a pool, a park, some play equipment, maybe paved walking trails, those kinds of amenities. So keep those in mind when you're searching for the home that is going to become a rental property. Tip number 3 is about HOAs. Depending on the type of renter that you're trying to attract, you may want an HOA because that's going to provide some amenities for your renters. But you also have to realize that's a monthly fee that you're going to have to pay each month, and you can't necessarily just tack that on to the rent. So, you still have to keep your rent within reason for what else is available and your competition, but you're going to have to pay that HOA fee probably monthly. Some of them are quarterly or even annually. Tip number 4 is property management. Now, whether you do this yourself, if you're local, you might choose to do that. It's a lot of work, and you're going to get those calls at 3 in the morning if the toilet overflows or whatever. So think about that and realize that if you want to hire a property management company to do everything for you, to find renters, to fill it when it becomes vacant, to take care of all the management of the property, it's probably going to cost you at least 10% of the monthly rental amount. So if your property rented for $3,000 a month, you should tack on an extra $300 to your expenses to pay the property manager. And it could be more than that. They all operate differently, but that's a good round number to start with. Tip number 5 is don't forget about larger property maintenance issues. So if you hire someone to manage the property, of course, they're going to take care of all the normal things like having your furnace and your air conditioning serviced, keeping up the landscaping, all those normal things. But there are larger expenses like things that you have to do every few years, like painting the exterior or the interior of your house. Also fencing. If you have wood fencing, it really takes a beating here in our weather, our high altitude and snow and sun, and you're going to want to refinish your wood fencing every few years. So there's things like that you have to add on some more money for those maintenance items. It's so sad when I see properties that I know are rental properties because they just look like, what they look like. They just look terrible and they're not maintained, and it's just so sad because you put your money into this as an investment. So I think it makes sense for you to maintain that so that when it's time, when you want to sell the home, you're getting the most money out of it. As promised, I'm going to make sure that you know about the Oregon laws. Now, Oregon is very much a tenant-friendly state, and there is a law that was passed a few years back that says that you can only increase your rental rate a certain percentage. And so it's basically a form of rent control. And every year they recalculate the number, so it changes. So every September, they will come out with the new percentage that you're allowed to increase. Now for 2024, it's 10%. If you had someone on a lease and they want to re-sign, and stay for the next year, you're only allowed to increase their rent by 10%. And just in general, you should realize that Oregon is definitely a tenant-friendly state. Fair warning. So could you cash flow a property in Bend It really depends. If you're going to get like an 80 or a 90% home loan on the property, I would say it would be really difficult to cash flow a property with that big of a loan at especially today's interest rates of 7%. Even though our rent prices have gone up, it's still really challenging with you've got to pay homeowners insurance, your property taxes, your mortgage payment, and a lot of other expenses involved in owning a rental home. So it's not a get rich quick scheme. And here's where the value of owning an investment property comes in though. In Bend, our home values have increased by double digits, more than 10%, most years for the past 10 or 15 years. I mean, it's just, we're such a popular area. People are coming here, they want to move here, live here, and they need a place to live. So yes, our prices did drop. And so if you purchased a home in the past couple of years, yeah, you could have lost a little bit in the value of your home. But as long as you're planning on keeping this property for, I would say, at least 5 to 7, maybe 10 years, make it a long-term investment strategy, then I think you will be fine, because over time things might go up and down a little bit, but definitely the general trend of home prices in our area is a pretty consistent upward trend. So this year already they've gone up a few percent, and you can keep an eye on my monthly market updates that I do every month. If you were thinking of maybe moving to Bend in sometime in the future, maybe 3 to 5 years from now, it would probably be a great idea to buy a home now and rent it out, move into it later. You're 3 or 5 years ahead of the, price increases that are most likely going to continue to happen in this area. We're just such a popular area. I don't really see a crash or our prices dropping greatly. So I think that could be a great idea. So I hope those 5 tips gave you some things to think about. If you have any questions about buying a rental property in Bend, you want to reach out to me. I am not a tax expert. I'm not a property manager expert. I'm a real estate expert though, and I certainly can help you investigate and research properties that might work for you. So give me a call, shoot me a text or an email. All my contact is down below, and I hope to see you again on the next video.